Hi, my name is Sean Roach. I'm at the Weeks tennis courts and just doing a little video inventory of some of the issues with the courts. Right now, my back is to Oxford Street, or the homes along Oxford Street. Weeks Field, the soccer fields and lacrosse fields are off to my right. Weeks, the building is to my left, directly in front of me now, and Rowena Street is over here to the left. So this court is, let's call it Court 1, the nearest to Oxford Street. So all of the posts along the entire court are separated. There's a concrete that's separated from the court surface. These are just cracks. There's a little bit of lift in some of them, but I won't look at each one of them. This is just kind of a general problem. The courts have two problems. They have seams and cracks. And the seams, I'm going to walk along this one, which is just inside the baseline on the Rowena side of what I'm going to call Court 1, has cracks, but right in the middle, this kind of lighter area is a soft spot. So it really affects the quality of play. Not a safety hazard, but just the quality of play. Up here near the court, the net, is another one of these seams. Up here, balls don't bounce very often here, but there are cracks, and this is just getting worse over time. And you can see cracks around the net post. There's this big crack here that runs along the weak side of this Court 1 that I'm calling, and out into what we'll call Court 2. And we'll talk about a seam in Court 2 in a second. And then there's some seam here as well behind the baseline on the weak side. And this is one area where the post is separating from the court surface. Creates a gap under the fence, which some folks have fixed with bricks, because otherwise the balls get through. So we're walking back again along this seam behind the baseline of Court 1. We're now in Court 2, which is the second closest to Oxford Street, and here's another one of these seams, and you can see there's some sort of fiberglass patch that was applied here, and basically between the cracks that we see here and then all the way to the net is a dead spot, which has a bad effect on the balls as they land here and kind of make it unplayable. And then this seam, come back towards the service line, still in Court 2, there's another seam, another dead area that's also creating cracks. And that extends over into Court 3. We'll look at that in a second. Between Court 2, I'm calling Court 2, heading towards the entrance out to the gate out to Rowena, is another seam. It does have cracks, which have been growing and presumably will grow over the summer. That is a little bit of a tripping hazard now, and will only get worse. And then there's a seam on the side of the Court 2 closest to Rowena. It's right here behind the service line. And then another seam here that's going within the alley. There's another seam, and this seam kind of continues into Court 3 and 4, as I'm calling them. Here's the seam that is in the doubles alley. Again, showing cracks and getting worse. Okay, we're going to hop over to what I call Court 3. It's probably tough to see in the video, but back along the fence, roots have made this area very, very uneven, and definitely a tripping hazard. It's close to the fence, so it's not, a kind of a severe hazard, but these the roots and these lumps do come out, and then there's this seam into the court from behind the baseline. There's this same seam inside the baseline that creates a soft spot that has an impact on lots of balls in play. This seam too, just behind the service line from court 2, continues. And then there's this massive seam with cracks, which starts inside the baseline, crosses over the service line, heads to the net, and we'll take a look at it on the other side of the net where it's worse. And there's a seam closer to the net, no cracks yet, but definitely has an impact on balls. And you can see that seam continues on the court 2. The big problem here with what I'm calling court 3 is on the side closest to Weeks Field, and you see that just massive cracks. This one, is actually quite deep, and just getting worse. Looks like they've been patched, but whatever patch is no longer holding. And then here is the seam as it goes, the seam and cracks as it goes back to the fence. Crossed over another seam, which continues into what I'm calling court 4, the court closest to the actual Weeks building in the parking lot. This is a crack and a soft spot that extends into the 4th court, the court closest to Weeks. We go back to the fence for this court 4 closest to the field. You see that there's a big crack, and that's part of a seam that continues in the backcourt across the baseline and all the way right up to the net. It's both got cracks and it's very soft, so it too has an impact on the quality of play, as well as being probably an incipient safety issue. And then that seam heads over to the fence on this fork, and then the same seam kind of heads over to the fence and this cut down growth. And going to this court 4, one closest to Weeks, there's this seam that goes right up the court. There's a crack, and then the seam goes over this direction as well. The seam goes all the way to the fence, and then this seam that pretty much goes across all 4 courts is just inside the baseline on the Rowena side of what I'm calling court 4. And then the last issue is over here by the fence. There was some sort of packed dirt here, which is all eroded. So the parking lot hasn't been cleaned. There's a lot of dirt collected here on the way to the sewer drain. But if we look at this area that's meant to be a ramp between the parking lot, and it's probably 2 or 3 inches, maybe 4 inches of rise from the parking lot surface to the court surface. There's no longer anything there, and as a result, the gates don't totally close, and unfortunately, balls get through and out here. It's just a bit of an annoyance. Thank you very much.